Hi, welcome to my expert series where I bring you trusted insight to help you live well, plan smart, and age with confidence. I'm Kelly Stain, a residential realtor, and today I am with Colleen Falicki with Back to Earth Compost Crew. They provide composting education and curbside compost collections throughout our area. So thank you so much, Colleen, for being here. I've known you for a
Thanks for
long
having me.
time, and I always learn something new when I talk with you. Um,
Likewise. Thank you for
yeah.
having me.
Yeah, thank you. So tell me a little bit about Back to Earth.
Sure. So, Back to Earth Compost Crew was kind of born out of the fact that when my kids were little, I really wanted to do something good for our planet, something good for them and for the future generation. And so I had been composting in my backyard and thought that there should be an easy way for my neighbors and the community to be able to compost. So I started Back to Earth Compost Crew in 2017. And we are, like you said, we work with, we do residential pickup. We work with businesses, commercial businesses, schools, cafes, breweries, really anyone who has food waste. We do a lot of compost education in the community, how to compost at home, home consults. So, really, anything that has to do with composting, we could probably help you with.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people are overwhelmed with the idea of composting, or like myself, or don't know where to begin. So I love that you do the education aspect. You're always out and about doing that stuff. Tell me about like why should someone consider composting? Why is it so important for the earth and beyond?
Sure. Yeah, I feel like my humble opinion, everyone should consider it. There's various ways of doing it, but because 30 to 40% of what we throw away is compostable, it's a huge reason, a huge resource. Instead of throwing it in the trash, composting is a way to recycle the food waste into something that's super valuable. So, average household throws out about 8 pounds of food a week. That's like the uneaten food, right? Or like
Right.
the scraps when you're cooking.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a large amount that could be diverted into something that's usable in the plants and gardens and farms. So that's a really good reason as to why it's better for the environment all the way around. If it goes in the landfill, it creates methane gas, which is not good for our environment. But if it's, and this is the wow that I got when I started learning about how important it is. If you take finished compost and add it to the land, in your garden on a farm, it actually sequesters carbon, and that's what we want to do.
Right.
So it's just a resource that's underutilized, and I'm so excited. I feel like it's having its moment.
Yeah, I
I don't know if
agree.
you've noticed.
I agree. Just a lot of
Yeah,
things better for the earth are having their moment, like secondhand and compost, and just being more in
yeah,
tune with the earth. Maybe
sure.
it's just who we're surrounding ourselves with.
It
Maybe,
might
but
be. Yeah.
I agree though. But you kind of touched on it though, but so explain maybe how does compost connect to healthier soil and earth, like
Sure.
air?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when food scraps and organic material are composted, which is the aerobic
Okay.
decomposition, it creates this finished compost that's teeming with life. Like when we go into schools and talk with students, I mean even adults. I was talking to some high school kids a couple weeks ago. 1 teaspoon of finished compost has 8 billion microorganisms
Wow.
in it, that these are what we need to add to our soil. So it becomes from this underutilized, resource. Oh, it's just food waste going into the garbage or incinerated or into the trash can. It's recycled into something that's just amazing that can be used for a lot of different purposes. So the soil health, once it's added to the soil, first of all of those microorganisms just add to the quality of the soil, and then that. So once the soil's healthier, the plant's healthier, right?
Right.
And then the plant's healthier, it stands up to, the maybe the weeds or
The elements around it.
oh yeah, bugs better. So then you could use less pesticides. So that's better for the earth. And then once we eat it, we're healthier because these plants are lacking. A lot of them are lacking in the nutrients that we need.
Right.
And having this conversation actually today about how what we eat like affects our whole body, obviously, and like building our bones and building our muscles. So those key nutrients are so needed. So the plant's healthier, and then the planet, we're healthier, and the planet is ultimately healthier as it's just we're all connected.
Right.
So it's starts with the soil, and so this is how you can build better soil, and it's something that you can do at home too, which is so cool.
Yeah, I love the aspect if you have the space and ability to do it at home. I'm guilty that I don't compost at home. We did for a short period, but I've been your client. I've been composting with
So grateful.
curbside for a long time because um, I just don't have the means or desire to really garden. But I think that's still good to do. So like that's why I love programs like yours of the curbside because even if you don't have space or the means or desire to use your compost, you're still giving it to someone and giving putting it somewhere that's like needed, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for being an excellent composter over the years. You've diverted hundreds of pounds. I should look and see how many you've diverted and let you know. But
Yeah.
it's astounding. That's the thing when you realize because we take weights when our drivers pick up the food scraps from our composters. And it's eye opening to see how it adds up and how collectively it adds up as opposed to going into landfill.
Right. Times it does. So all right. I've texted you before, and I'm sure it's often a question of what items should not go in
Sure.
compost bins.
Sure. So ours is a little bit different than like your backyard composter or
Yeah,
like
could you make the difference too?
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So and also like if you're worm composting or bokashi composting, there's different ways to compost and different
Okay.
things that you can put in there. It's fascinating once you dive into the world of composting. But for our composters curbside, we can take everything that you would put into your backyard composter. The things you want to really avoid are meat, bones, and dairy.
Yeah.
And they'll smell. You might get animals. Your neighbors won't like you. All the things. So there are ways that you can add it, but using bokashi first and then adding it to your compost. But really, if you were composting at home, I would say like in a kind of neighborhood area, I would stay away from adding those things to your backyard compost. And there is a way, like what composting correctly, if you won't have any smells. So, but
Right.
even adding those things could cause to have smells. So,
Right, which is a good point. If it smells, something's going on, right?
right, exactly. If it smells, it means that it's kind of gone anaerobic, and you need to add usually carbon. You'll add carbon in there, wood chips or leaves or shredded paper, things like that, and get some air in there
Mhm.
because it's basically like it's a mix of carbon and nitrogen, like a 3-to-1 ratio. And then you need oxygen, and you also need H2O, you need water. So that's kind of the recipe. But adding meat, bones, or dairy in there can kind of screw things up. So avoid that if you're composting at home. And also in our buckets, curbside, we don't take any meat, bones, or dairy or like any fats or oils.
Right.
But commercially, we can take those items. We might end up start taking those items in the buckets. So we'll see.
What about eggshells? What's that
Yes.
considered?
Yeah, we can take
Eggshells good, right?
eggshells. Yeah. And if you're composting those in your yard, yeah, I would rinse them out first just because you
Yeah.
might not get hot enough. If you're taking the temperature, absolutely, that's fine. But if it doesn't get hot enough, you might have some bacteria. They do take a while to break down in the home composter. You really want to even smash them up before you put them in there, and even then, it takes a while.
Yeah.
They're kind of one of the last things.
Oh,
I,
really?
yeah.
That's good to know. So yeah, no meat, bones, dairy. Like what mistakes or common mistakes do beginners make if they're doing their own compost in their like backyard? Is there any like,
Sure. That's a good question because I made this mistake. And when I teach the classes, it's like the number one thing. So they're only adding nitrogen, like food scraps, and
right?
not adding enough like carbon at all. So that will really turn anaerobic quickly. It'll be hard to turn. It'll smell. It'll look like muck. And I've been there. So to avoid that, it's great to do a little bit of like research. You can maybe come to one of our classes. I can do a home consult. You can email me to ask questions, but you want to have the right ratios. I also have a compost cheat sheet. I'm happy to send anyone.
Okay.
Super helpful.
Yeah.
Like 3-to-1 ratio. So if you're putting a cup of food scraps in there, you want to put 3 cups of wood chips, leaves, shredded paper, anything carbon to that pile. In fact, you want to have it on top of the pile when you're done, like adding it. You always want to cover it with something like that, so that the food scraps are not like
Exposed.
visible or exposed. Yeah. And the other thing is like cutting up the food scraps or even like putting them in a blender to like bring them down to the smallest like pieces possible. So that way they compost quicker.
Oh, you're
And it's,
suggest. Oh, to do that. Yeah,
yeah,
that makes
yeah.
sense.
Like I know it's a little bit more work, but it's helpful not to like have an entire pineapple in there.
Right.
Cut it up into smaller pieces or watermelon rinds. They will break down, and it's the microorganisms that break the food scraps and the organic matter down, not worms. And that's a misconception as well, unless you're doing worm composting, which
Okay.
is something else. Yeah, which is something else. But the worms will come into your pile. But it's the microorganisms that they're the ones that are heating up the pile and breaking down the organic matter. There's some
So
they look pretty funky under microscope as well.
I'm sure. How long does it take from like it going out there to like being something I could plant in my garden?
So it depends on if you are doing the right
Doing it right.
ratios.
Right.
Yeah.
If
If
I'm
you're
doing it
turning
right. Yeah.
doing it right, if you had, so there's 2 different ways. If you have a tumbler outside,
Yeah.
you could get finished compost in a month through a
Okay.
tumbler. If you're doing, so if you can get started now, if you get started now, you could have finished compost in your backyard this summer.
Yeah.
So really, it depends. And the thing about it is, it breaks down. So it breaks down to like almost nothing. So if you have a full composter, because it's just the way that organic matter,
Like a
breaks down.
bag of spinach.
Yes. Oh, that'll exactly. That's a good analogy. It is like that. And so you're thinking like, oh, I had this huge pile and now it's only like this much to like a third. It's really like a third of
Wow.
what you put in there. So it's nice to have 3 bins, like a 3-bin system. And I always recommend the Geo bin. It's
Okay.
it's 7 pounds, 7.5 pounds. It's so lightweight. It ships in like a thin box because you can basically like, it just is very something that you would put around a tree when it's like expands when it opens, and it has holes in it and there's no bottom, and it's just really easy to set up. It has these little keys on the side.
Huh.
If you check it out, GeoBin, Yardfully is the company that makes it. They just do a great job, and it's $38. So it's
Oh.
super affordable, right? Yeah. It's a great way to get started, and then a pitchfork, and that's really all you need. And, obviously like the inputs, the food scraps,
Right, right.
but if you don't have enough leaves, you could always see if neighbors or like people put their leaves out at the curb.
True.
Um, Shred some paper. I know people that have shredders that, they can shred cardboard with, Amazon boxes, anything like that. Yeah, that kind of stuff can go in there. So yeah, it's fairly, it can be, it doesn't have to be expensive. There are a lot of expensive composters on the market, but you don't even need a geobin. Like you could just have a pile in your yard, which I did for a while. So, you can
Right.
try. If you have leaves, you can even start by just composting your leaves and just kind of see how that works, and turn it once a week. Add a little bit of water if you need to. Turn it, keep turning it, and it'll break down. And there's a trick you can. Oh, go ahead.
No, don't. What's your trick?
There's a trick for leaves. So if you have a trash can,
Yeah.
or preferably a round trash can, and a weed whacker, you can put your leaves in there and put your goggles on and weed whack in the trash can with the leaves. It actually will shred the leaves. It's a cheap way of shredding the leaves. I actually will use those as mulch around my house.
Same.
Um,
We just
yeah,
we vacuum. We lawnmower over the
yeah,
leaf.
yes, and that's great for your lawn too. So
Yeah.
if you have so many that you want to kind of make some mulch with them, and then you could add it to your compost, and it'll help. Just they're already kind of halfway broken down anyway. So adding them to your compost will it's kind of better than the full leaves. But if you don't have that option, you could still just put your leaves in there.
Yeah, and I was thinking while we were talking, I was like, you know what? You don't have to have a garden with like vegetables. I have
Mhm.
gardens with like flowers and stuff that compost would be great for that. So no
Oh
matter
yeah,
what it is, that you can use that healthy stuff to make all your flowers bloom better.
yeah, and even like your flowers inside, your plants,
Sure.
and if you
Oh
have
yeah,
stuff in the house. Hmm.
lots of plants inside. Can you purchase compost that either that you're making or other compost locally?
Yeah, so we do deliver by the yard or half
Okay.
yard. So like from a half yard up to 3 yards, we can deliver locally. Our area map is on the website, and then
Okay.
anything outside the area, there's just a little charge to deliver it or additional charge. But yeah, we have that option, and our composters, like you, have the option of picking up finished compost from us twice a year. So we love Compost Give Back Day, where we can give back the finished
Okay.
compost for our composters to use in their gardens. So
This is great and timely because it is. You could have
mhm.
compost for your summer gardens if you start
Yeah.
now, and there's lots of different options. Any other last tips or suggestions that you want to share?
I'm trying to think how to keep food scraps from going into like how to avoid having food scraps in the first place. So
Okay.
there's in your kitchen, there's so many different ways that you can, avoid having scraps. And the one thing I can think of, like meal plan to begin with.
Right.
And it's like at the beginning of the week, figure out what you're going to have. And you could use like say one onion for multiple recipes or two nights you have pasta or days you have pasta and avoid having leftovers and create different recipes that would use the same item so that you don't have those leftovers. There's always going to be scraps, but there's a lot of ways in the kitchen that you can avoid having food waste to begin with, and that's just one of them. But if you check out Refed, it's a great
Okay.
resource for
Refed.
reducing food waste.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a whole other subject, right? Of how to
Yeah,
reduce everything. And all right, thank you so much for your time. This was really helpful. Hopefully, this inspires some people to start composting in their own backyard, reducing waste, and even reach out to you if they have too much compost or don't want to do it on their own. Thank
absolutely. Happy
you.
to help. Thank you.